All right. Good Friday evening, everyone. My name is John Newman. This is Breaking Cardboard. This is a once a month live podcast, if you will, every second Friday of every month, 9:30 p.m. This is the fourth installment of it. Generally, we have a co-host and a couple guests, and we talk about whatever's going on in the hobby. Obviously, we try to ask questions pertinent to the guests we have on the show, obviously, as well. We don't have anybody kind of come on screen with us, but if you're active in chat with comments, I will put those on the screen, and myself and the guest host will obviously respond to those as well. So let me bring on my guest host for episode 4 today, Mr. Mike Summer from Wax Pack Hero. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get a chance to co-pilot this episode with you tonight.
Well, I'm letting you sit right in the first captain chair. I'm just going to watch, I think, today. But no, thank you for coming on, Mike, and co-hosting with me. And let's bring in our guests here for episode 4. Let's see. I don't want to forget nothing. Sports card culture, card ladder, House of Jordans, the crossover with Chris and Josh, and so we got Chris McGill and Christina Thorson. Welcome.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for. I know you're busy. You're like me with a bunch of different shows and content. So to coordinate this is not as easy as probably some people always think it is. So I appreciate you coming on, Mike, as well too. So first question. I'll kind of kick it off, and me and Mike will alternate, and then obviously anything we get in the chat room, I can put it on the screen, and we can play off that as well. With Card Ladder, you do a great job with the analytics. I'm not going to mention names. I don't have no free advertising here, but we've seen a bunch of new entrants into that space when it comes to price analytics. I'm assuming you kind of figured that was par for the course or was coming. Just some of your thoughts, and how do you view that, or are you sort of focused on what you're doing, and how do you navigate those waters, so to speak?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'm supposed to say something here about how competition is good and produces the best outcome and this, that, and the other. But, working on Card Ladder is our livelihood. It's obviously a little bit scary to see other people come along and try and take a piece of the market that we're trying to take a piece of too. So I guess that just kind of lights a fire to do an even better job and work even harder than we do right now. And I'll tell you this. I can definitely genuinely say that the more people are out there organizing and making data accessible and making this hobby more accessible, I think that grows the pie bigger for everybody. So the only caveat that I'd put on that is it's really important that people take it very seriously and they do a very good job, because it's really easy to set up a couple of lines of code and start pulling in data from everywhere and just dumping it in to a folder and then throwing it up on a screen for people. And I don't think that's doing enough. I think there needs to be vetting. I think people need to take it very seriously. And if whoever wants to just set a computer to autopilot and think that's just going to get the job done, it's not. And that's not the way to approach it. So that's the only caveat I'd put on that.
Christina, anything to add?
John, you're trying to get me in trouble. No, I have nothing to add.
That's my job, unofficially.
I think you hit on something important there, Chris. And that's growing the whole pie. And growing the whole piece. I know one of the things that I've heard Dr. Beckett say, and it was probably even on one of the conversations that you had with him. One of the reasons that he started the price guides was to build an education and level the playing field for people. And I think what the type of thing that you're doing with Card Ladder is taking that to the next level and leveling that playing field even more in our modern times where you're needing to pull in data from a variety of sources. You know, a lot of people, you say eBay, that's the place to go. That's where you need to look to see the current prices. As these other platforms come online and we have more and more places to sell cards, both and buy cards, both in person and online, that span of where we need to get data from is continuing to grow. I know when you guys first started, it seemed like a lot of your work was manual to get pricing updated. Now that you're pulling from a variety of sources, can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like, how you go and aggregate that data from a variety of sources all around?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I want to tip the hat to Dr. Beckett, as you did. He's the original content creator in my mind, or one of the original content creators. You know, I don't think there's a single person in this hobby I hold in higher esteem than I hold him. So, well said on Dr. Beckett. On the multiple marketplaces front, we pull now from, and I'm not gonna this will not be exhaustive, but eBay, MySlabs, PWCC, Golden, and when I say PWCC, that includes their monthlies as well as their premier, Heritage, SCP, Memory Lane, Leland's, and there's 4 or 5 more Mile High. There's a few more that I'm not thinking of, and you know, that's in terms of the tech behind that. That's not a question I'm capable of answering. But our developer Josh could probably explain how that works. But yeah, it's extremely important to us that we pull data from every source. And even if, you know, hey, maybe this marketplace isn't as well advertised as another one, or in the case of the PWCC monthlies, maybe some stuff comes in and it sells under market. We still want people to be able to see those data points and to know where they came from. So, in Mikey, I think you nailed it, that things have changed so much from between 18 months ago to now in terms of the fracturing of marketplaces and all the different ways that people are buying and selling cards now. And, you know, it's important to make sure people have a chance to see all that data, and maybe we can make their lives a little easier. They don't have to go to 15 different websites to see it. They can go to one and get it. What do you think, Christina?
I think that was a little choppy, unfortunately. To me, I don't know if everyone else like caught everything. I don't know if that was just my internet connection or Chris's or what, but yeah, I think that it's pivotal that everyone has as much information and data as they can. I mean, being able to just look at eBay comps is fine, but that shows like a blip on the larger scale of the hobby. And Card Ladder, you know, Chris just named a bunch of auction houses and platforms that we get data from, but we also accept private sales. So if you're at a card show, you can report your sale to Card Ladder. It goes through an even more demanding vetting process than we currently put on the marketplaces, but it's a good data set as well. It's important because there's a lot of cash deals that happen in the hobby that set comps, and unless you're connected in those groups, you don't necessarily always know when a Michael Jordan insert that you're searching for sells. But the people in like the Michael Jordan Facebook groups, they've all found out that John paid X amount to buy mics, right? So by reporting it to Card Ladder, now we open it up to we level the playing field, like Mike said, so that a newcomer or someone who maybe not isn't as connected gets to know what everyone else who is connected knows.
All right, I got a 2-part question for you, but I'm going to probably answer the first part for you. You got to like a host who answers a question for you. But you've taken a little bit of heat, if you will, from a few people about the PWCC thing. Anyone that knows me knows I'm not a huge fan of theirs. But here's the thing. So I'll answer the first part. Everything we have right now is all allegations. They are selling a big part of the hobby. They sell millions of dollars in cards, and they are sales, so that you got to track that stuff. So I kind of answered the first question. You can kind of add on to it, but my second question is, God forbid, I'm not rooting for this, truth be told, but if it hypothetically. Using a lot of big words tonight. My wife would be proud. But hypothetically, if something was to come down, charges were filed, that sort of thing, more proof rather than allegations. How, as a pricing analyst, how do you handle a situation like that? We're asking a question that can only really be answered in the future, but how do you think you would handle a situation like that? And any auction house. I'm using PWCC, but in fairness, anything that comes about where it's proven there's been illegal activities that led to maybe higher prices and that sort of thing.
It's be a huge issue, and it'd be really difficult for anybody in the hobby to be able to put their trust in prices realized from that outlet. So it no matter who it was, we've that's one of the things that's a real pain point for our business, but it's also one of the places that we add value, is that we see every night phony sales. So to give you an insight into what my night looks like on average, or what it will look like tonight. So we're doing the crossover after this. That'll go from 10 p.m. Central my time until midnight Central my time. And then from midnight until about 4 in the morning, I'm going to look at somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 sales. Every sale of every card in our database, I'm going to look at. And through that process, I have a lot of data that is easily available to me to be able to vet those sales. I'm able to see what the last copy sold for. I'm able to see the date of that sale. I'm able to pull up the listing very quickly, look at the bid history if it's an auction. I'm able to very quickly see if there's cheaper copies available on eBay. And John, without fail, every night, there will be somewhere 10, 20, 30 listings where, maybe it'll be an auction of a card that has 20 copies on eBay for $50, but the one that I'm looking at sold for $500. And so I say to myself, how in the world could this card sell for $500 at auction if there's 20 copies on eBay, same grade, same card, for $50 each? And so we exclude that data point. And like I said, we do that for around 20 to 30 sales per night. And we publish that list in its entirety. So for the data nerds out there who care to see it every day on the news feed, you can just click on the daily sales log, I think it's called. And it's going to show you a list of all the excluded sales. So anybody who wants to see the sales that got excluded can go see them. And kind of, if somebody's new to the hobby, it's a great way to kind of look at some of the shenanigans that go on. So you could go look at some of those auctions and see, so this is what incremental shill bidding looks like. Oh, okay. Oh, this is what people mean when they say there's zero feedback bidders bidding on stuff. So it's a very, disappointing aspect of our hobby. Obviously, you don't want to ever shed too much light on it or put too much energy into the negative. But, whether it's on eBay or an auction house, if there comes down, legal evidence that, this, or it doesn't even need to be legal evidence. If it's just clear and convincing evidence that any rational, intelligent person could look at and say, yeah, this is on balance here, this is probably fraud. When that happens, it completely casts everything that seller does into a different light. To give an analogy, there was a situation maybe 10 years ago in which a chemist in Boston who worked for a crime lab, that chemist had been found to have tampered with evidence. And what they had to do as a result was they had to throw out every single case that she worked on. And so I don't know if we would need to do anything that dramatic in that situation, but it certainly casts the entire data set from that entity into a negative light. So I don't want to be melodramatic about it, but it would be a big problem.
You hit on something there too that I think is pretty interesting. You've expanded greatly what is included in Card Ladder. From 8 major sports, that you've got cards in there that you're building a history for. And you just talked about spending 4 hours every night going through and validating whether or not this data is good data to include. How replicatable is that on into the future as you continue to expand? Are there ways that you're not going to have to manually review those transactions?
No, I hope we never move away from the manual review process. Mike, even when we were in Vegas, saw you at the industry summit, and Christina will attest to this as well. We spent half the day at the summit, and we spent the other half of the day continuing to build out the database at the hotel and then work in the same hours. So that's why we would never even show up until about noon, because we were in the hotel doing the same thing. I mean, we haven't taken a day off in over a year and a half, because the data never takes a day off. But I hope we never move away from the manual vetting process, because I think it's important that at least one person out there is doing it. And so if we have to hire more people when we reach a certain juncture, then we just do. That's not a problem. We'll make that work. But an interesting tidbit is that our database started at 500 cards when we had our soft launch, and now we have almost 18,000. But if you look on the dashboard at the daily sales volume figures, they really haven't fluctuated that crazily from when we had 500 to when we have 18,000. In other words, even though the database has scaled 36 times, it's gotten 36 times larger, the sales volume on a daily basis maybe has gotten 2 times larger on average. And maybe part of that is just a function of the fact that the first 500 cards we added were the right combination of highly transacted and fairly expensive, so that we already had the core, and then we were just building peripherally around it. But another thing that I think is interesting and counterintuitive is that it's almost as if there's like a ceiling or a lid on the amount of money that's going to get transacted online on sports cards on a day-to-day basis, and there's just an upper limit, and once it's reached, the coffers have been exhausted, and that's just how much gets spent. So there even is a little bit of light at the end of this tunnel that suggests that maybe there's never more than $5 million in the aggregate spent on sports cards per day. Maybe that just doesn't happen ever. And right now, on average, we see about $1 million in sports cards per day come into Card Ladder. And given that, actually, I should amend my statement. Maybe there's never more than about 2 to 3 million spent per day. And the reason why I say that is because we've done some systematic analyses of how our coverage of the sports card hobby lines up against the total aggregate sales volume in the hobby. And on some of those, when we compared some numbers in terms of how much aggregate sales volume we track versus how much was happening on eBay over the course of the year, from at least one approach, we had coverage of almost 50% of eBay's sales. I tend to think that number is closer maybe to 25 to 30%. We have a coverage of about 25 to 30% of the total sales volume spent on eBay, but it might be more. And so there really might be a world where you never need more than 1 to 2 people to do it on a nightly basis. But it's definitely a question we think about a lot in our business model, and we're very sensitive to.
So when do you sleep, I guess, is the next question that just popped into my head. That one's not even on my list. That one just popped in my head.
Go ahead, Christina.
Well, Chris usually sleeps from about 5 to noon, 5 a.m. to noon. And then I'm usually sleep about 4 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10:30. I'm usually up by 10:30.
Yeah, I have to nickname you like Dracula. Those are Dracula hours.
They really are.
Yep.
I always joke that like Chris is going full on vampire, and I'm not far behind him.
Man, God bless you. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just saying, I wanted to talk a little bit about the content side of things too. You know, when I first connected with you guys and when I first heard about you guys, it was through the House of Jordan's podcast, which is no more, you know, and that audio only feed is the way that I was consuming and being a part of your community. That's since gone away, but that was also before you even had the card ladder product, right? That is all come on since then. You have the YouTube channel now where you're putting out multiple shows, highly produced shows. How does content creation fit into your overall model? Do you run them separately as two separate things? You talk, you know, or is that part of the integrated plan for how you're going to approach building the overall business?
What do you think, Christina? That's a good question.
That's a great question. I mean, I think that in some regards they are connected, especially sports cards culture, where we heavily rely on card ladder data in that show, which I think is what you're talking about with the heavily produced content, which is all thanks to our amazing content officer, Nick, Stiff Arm Wax, who really just brought us into the future, and maybe not the future, but brought us into like actual production of the show, and where we were previously. And then crossover, you know, crossover is kind of like happy hour for Chris and Josh. And like, I'm still stuck at the office during crossover, if you guys haven't noticed, but they're having fun, they're laughing, they're talking to our friends who are watching and asking questions. And it's really more of the ask me anything about what's happening in the hobby for Chris Hoge and Cardboard Chronicles, not Chris CEO and Josh CTO, I would say. So I think there is especially a divide on that level, especially as we get into hour 3 and like, you know, the Trulies are flowing and some people get a little loose with what they're talking about. That's definitely not like card ladder branded and approved sometimes. But yeah, I think that, you know, we're just everything we do, Mike, we always say like our philosophy is like what's good for the hobby, and having Josh and Chris talk openly about what's happening, not just on Card Ladder, but in the hobby, and talking to our amazing community, which is there's the hobby at large, is really important to us. So content is important to us, but it's more than just like something we do. It's the passion that drives us.
Got a comment from Yam. He likes. He says Christina's backdrop wins. Yeah, I'm going to finish last tonight in that category. But again, seeing you know, doing the analytics, you're you know, knee deep in seeing what these sales are going for. I get asked all the time, you know, are we in a market correction, John? Is it you know, the old crash correction debate, not even a debate, but discussion. What is it? My answer always is probably more of a correction. You know, what difference, what word we use? It's more of a percentage base type answer. I mean, you have your finger more on the pulse doing what you do. I guess I'll pose the question to you. I think you're better suited to answer it than I am, quite frankly. You know, what would you call kind of where we're I mean, the hobby's doing well. I don't think we're debating that, but how would you assess where the market is right now?
You know, it's definitely a mixed market. I think Rob of Burbank Sports Cards once put it really well. He said the hobby is not monolithic, but it's a bunch of different silos, and different areas are going to be performing in different ways. But there are some aggregate trends for sure. I don't think any card or very few cards have returned to how high they got earlier this year during the mania that we experienced, I think, in late January, February, and March. And then there was a cooling off period. But what I'm encouraged by is notwithstanding individual players who may fluctuate, there's guys like Cole Anthony or Jordan Poole or some of these younger up and coming basketball players who have gotten really hot because they've leapfrogged expectations. But on the whole, the industry's kind of, as they say, been trading sideways for about 4 to 6 months. And I like to see that because it tells me that people are buying cards and they're buying cards in a pretty flat market. And hopefully they're buying the cards because they like them and because they're building out collections. And because they found a hobby that they're passionate about and it makes their life better and they enjoy it, and it's intellectually stimulating, it's creative, it's expressive, and they're becoming collectors or they already are collectors and they're building out their collections. So I take a lot of confidence in our market from the fact that it's been pretty much stagnant price wise in the aggregate for the last 4 to 6 months. And does that mean that it's going to suddenly go up again? Does that mean that it's going to go down again? I have no clue. I wish I knew, right? That would be great, but I have no clue. But I can kind of look backwards and say, it's pretty encouraging to me that people are still, in the aggregate dumping millions of dollars into their sports card collections every day, even as prices are pretty stable. Good. That's a good sign. I think there's a lot of quote unquote asset classes that would be in a bad spot if they weren't showing positive growth month after month after month. But the hobby's a little different. The main attraction of the hobby to me is everything about the experience. It's about the community. It's about your friends that you make. It's about consuming and enjoying content. It's about enhancing fandom of sports. It's about assembling a collection. And whether or not any card I own ever makes money or not, that's not the focal point for me. The reason why I've always loved the hobby is escapism. The hobby is something that literally makes my life better every day. When I wake up and I'm checking eBay and my saved searches, or I'm going into my group chats on Instagram, or I'm looking at social media, or any of those types of things, I really just enjoy it. It's an escape. It's a release. And I think that's the real value in this hobby. It as much as it's interesting and captivating to me and to many others to follow price movements and price trajectories, and it is. It's interesting academically. It's exciting. It's really it's engaging, but that's not the heart of this hobby. The heart of the hobby is all those other things I mentioned.
You talked about building a collection. How have your collections been progressing, over this last couple of years as you launched Card Ladder and the time that it takes to do that? How's that impacted the Jordan and the Luka collections?
We can't afford Jordan and Luka. That's why it was kind of appropriate for the House of Jordans to go on a hiatus. I've moved on to this guy. I just got this in the mail today. This is a 2018 Obsidian Christian McCaffrey 1/1. I picked this up for $145 on eBay last week. That's more my range, and I've found a new sport and a new player to collect as the market's been down. I know Christina has. I'm sorry, not as the market's been down, but as the market's been up, and it's been we've had to adjust to that. But I've had a great time adjusting to it and transitioning to new players to collect the new sports. And I know Christina has a PC. As well, so maybe you could talk about that one, Christina.
My side PC. So my side PC is Maxi Kleba from the Dallas Mavs. So drafted in 2017, little known, not in a lot of product. So it's been really fun chasing his rookie cards because he's right now, like at best, a sixth man on the Mavs' bench. So it's been difficult, but it's also been really rewarding when you find those cards. So it's been really fun, and that's how, I'm collecting these days. Because, like Chris said, I've been priced out of Luca. Like,
But don't be modest. You have maybe the best Maxi Kleber collection in the world.
Yeah, and I compete with just his mom for it.
I think there's something fun about that, and I think that's one of the things that I've heard you both talk about that, and the new pivoted focus of your collections. And I think that's one of the reason I wanted to talk about it a little bit, because so many people get locked into one way of thinking about their collection or the hobby. But one of the great things about it is that we've got a range of sports, a range of players, 100 years of history, whatever it might be. And it's okay to pivot. It's okay to shift gears and change things up a little bit, keep things fresh. That's okay. And so to hear people who have, had, high profile collections and a focus say, you know what, I'm going to take a break from what I was doing and I'm going to focus on something different and I'm going to have fun doing it. I think that's great to hear, and it's great for everybody else to hear. So
well said. Well said. There's a lot to learn too. I mean, this hobby, man, you could spend a lifetime studying it. I suppose that's one of the things that your podcast has always made clear to me is just there's a wealth of information and sets and history waiting to be uncovered. And so this hobby, you can go as deep or as far into its history as you want to go. and you could spend a whole lifetime finding and expanding and branching out to new products and new sets to collect.
What you guys do, I mean, obviously you're very busy, short sleep schedule, it sounds like. Has obviously you're doing great things, and you have to have a passion to do that kind of stuff. Has it, I can speak to this myself too, doing content creation, it leaves less time, at least for me, to do, cards on a sort of personal level. I still do it. There's less time in that pie. The pie is only so big. Have you, had to adjust kind of how you do cards on your own to, your collecting habits? Have you had to find something that works, like a balance, or talk to the difficulties of doing what you do and your own personal collection and cards on your own, so to speak?
Oh yeah, you have to force yourself to take the time. And you have so many hobby hours in a day. And so, am I going to spend it making content, maybe working on some show notes, or am I going to spend it looking up, stuff that maybe I'm chasing and see if I can find a certain card, or am I going to sell something, to maybe try and build up a little war chest for my next piece I want to collect. And there's just not enough hours in the day. And so, yeah, I found myself getting carried away, getting too focused on the content and not focusing enough on the experience. And I just have to recharge. I wonder how you guys, Mike and John and Christina, I wonder how each of you navigate that as well, because, that's actually a really interesting wrinkle in this whole content creation thing, is that, if I'm strictly a content creator and I'm not collecting anything, or I'm not actively collecting anything, some of the authenticity is going to be missing. So, and plus, the thing that's most fun, as fun as it is making content, the thing that's the most fun is just adding to the collection. At least it is for me. That's where it all starts and ends. So I don't know. I wonder what you guys think about that.
Well, for me, my son's about to turn 22. If he was a young kid like he once was, it would be very difficult. I always say, I coached youth sports, I coached varsity high school football and baseball. The content creation sort of took the place of that when I stopped doing that. When I see content creators, Chris, Christina, Mike, like with young kids, like doing what they're doing, like, on one hand, I'm sort of amazed and admire it. And then I'm just like hoping the kids are still getting mom or dad as well. I've done card shows for a lot of years. I had an acquaintance of mine who was just doing so much traveling and shows it cost him his marriage. I was literally set up in the same quad when, he said, "Hey, my wife's giving me sort of an ultimatum." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do? Where do you value this to your marriage?" And, I think he wanted me to sort of answer that question for him. I couldn't do that. I said, "You gotta, you only you can do that." He wound up getting divorced. So I'm not saying he picked the cards over his family, but that's the way it went down. And so I've seen that. I've seen that even play in competitive sports. I still play softball. I've seen guys that just play every night, and then weekend tournaments, they miss all their kids' sporting events, dance recitals, and they're single again. They're divorced or they're broke up if they're not married. So I've sort of seen that along the way, and it's kind of taught me sort of how to budget my time and balance that stuff out. It's a little easier for me for two reasons. My son's older, and my wife's very supportive. While she doesn't know anything about the hobby per se, she supports that. I enjoy doing it. I do card shows. I've really actually started now that here in New York they've lifted restrictions. I've started to set up at those again. So I think you touched on it too, Chris. You got to sort of have a game plan. Like, I'm going to do this for this amount of time. I'm going to do this amount of time. The other variable, if you sell cards like I do, like you got it that time. I like when you buy cards, right? You want your cards right away. Well, I want to ship them out right away to those that are buying off me. So the shipping time is kind of got to be baked in, because if it's, if I got to package up 15 things, or I got to package up on a slower day 1 or 2 things, right? That's where the time is got to be. I mean, there's no, hey, I'll just mail those 15 things out tomorrow, because I feel like if you do that, tomorrow is going to become tomorrow, and now stuff's sitting there 2, 3, 4 days. And I know, being as a buyer too, I like to get the mail slow enough on its own. I don't need to add to the slow speed by not getting that stuff out in a prompt time. So that's sort of my first thing, is to make sure I take care of that. And based on how long that really takes, it kind of leaves time for other things. I've said this on my show, probably between episode 50 to 60 of Sports Card Nation, I was getting consumed a little bit by the content creation. I'm very transparent, and I share a lot of personal stuff, where I came down one day, everything I do is upstairs in the office studio. And I came down one day, and my wife, she didn't yell. She just said, I barely see you lately. What do you do? What are you doing? I mean, she knows what I'm doing, but what, just the saying. And sometimes you don't even realize till someone else, I think, sometimes sort of tells you, and then you realize, like, wow, all right. And so, I fixed that problem. We have a whiteboard here. And so, like, I'm doing this, it's on the whiteboard, show 9:30, interview Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Just the communication. That was one of the other things. I don't know if I think she was more disappointed that I didn't sort of communicate, hey, I got this going on today or Wednesday or next week, and so we got that whiteboard, and I mean, everything goes on there. Doctor's appointments, card interviews, this show, everything. My son puts his stuff. So we know as a family, even my mother-in-law who lives with us, her appointments or what have you are on there. So we know what everyone's sort of schedule looks like. And I think communication, I know it's the cliche line, right? Communication is key, but it's a cliche line because it's so true. And so when we really did the whiteboard and just kind of know where everyone was doing and what they were doing, it's really sort of balanced that out and kind of cleared that issue up. And some people wouldn't talk about that, right? It's kind of sort of a little embarrassing, if you will, but if it helps someone else out, it helped help me out. So I don't mind sharing some of those, experiences. I talk about them on the show with other people. You get if you can dish it out a little bit, you got to be able to take it as well.
Yeah, for me, I think there's just that balance that I try to put in, and fortunately, I'm an early riser. So you guys are going to bed at 4 to 5. I'm waking up about 4:30 or 5, and I've got a good couple hours before the rest of the family gets up and before I have to be at work, where I can focus on podcast recording. I can focus on the blog. I can focus on filling orders that came in overnight and getting things ready to ship off. And so that's when I get a lot of stuff done. And then, on the weekends, I've got the shop open noon to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. And that kind of gets two birds with one stone. It lets me itch that business or scratch that business itch. But when I'm going through collections at the shop, when I'm, picking up things that people are bringing in to have me take a look at, that's letting me also take a look at some new stuff and get a chance to see some new inventory and get some cards in that I otherwise wouldn't. And so that, from a time perspective, those kind of work out well. From a financial perspective, I always talk about creating a self-sustaining hobby, right? And so that's probably, especially now, trying to run the LCS or having that shop open a couple days a week too, balancing not keeping all of these things that are coming in, but knowing that some of this I've got to be able to resell so that I can make some of that profit to be able to then pick up things. And so I've kind of had a pretty focused where I set aside a little bit of what I'm making each month from the shop and from my online sales to be able to put towards a PC item or a few PC items. And so that over time, I'm a patient person. And so I don't have to have it all right now. And so over time, that's led me gradually add, I got the Jordan rookie earlier this year and was able to put one of those away, and a Dr. J rookie, several months later was able to add one of those at the National. Walter Payton rookie, kind of, I've been slowly but surely being able to check off some of these PC cards that I've wanted for a long time, and been able to use the profits along the way to do that while still having enough to be able to put back into fresh inventory for the shows in the shop and online. So patience, I think, is the key for that kind of stuff.
Mike mentions a mistake I made back in my store days from 92 to 97, like getting attached to cards and not putting them out in that showcase. And, I learned, you got to learn by trial and error. I learned, even though I don't have the LCS anymore, just doing the shows and online sales, I just don't get attached. You obviously have cards that are your PC. You're not going to list them on a platform for sale, but I've learned not to do that as much as I did when I had the store. And we don't have time, but I can give you even specific examples, but I won't. So that's important point. Mike's probably doing a better job at it than I did for about 5 or 6 years during my store days. And if I ever did a store again, I would know better. But I wish I knew better. Hindsight's 2020. I wish I knew better then. The store did well, but it was just a mistake I made.
Well, hey, it is November 12th. We just had our first snowfall in Central Illinois here. Tell me about what it's like being in Illinois now instead of Texas here as we get ready to move into the winter.
We had a little snow today as well. This is Christina's topic, the winter time.
Well, we were in Los Angeles, not Texas. We get that a lot, though. So
I thought you were in Texas for some reason.
A lot of people have thought we were in Texas. I don't know why, but we were in Los Angeles. So Christopher was in school. So I love it. I love the seasons. I grew up in Connecticut, and spent my childhood going back and forth between Connecticut and Los Angeles, and there's nothing to me beats like the seasons changing. So I'm totally enjoying it. I freaked out today when I went upstairs after a call to grab some lunch and it was snowing. Like I took a video, like I was so happy. Like so happy. Like it made my day. And then, like grabbed my lunch and went back downstairs with a smile on my face. So I'm enjoying it immensely. I know Christopher's not really a big fan of snow and cold, but he puts up with it.
Not against it,
Yeah.
Well, you could be in Syracuse where we get some of the bigger inches totals in the U.S. And I like it. I'm not going to be as every year I'm like, I hope we get a mild winter. I hope we get a mild winter because me and my son have to shovel. And this year I'm not saying that as much because I changed career. So I'm a teacher's assistant. So if we get snow days, I get to stay home and get paid just the same. So bring on the snow, as they say. But like Christina, I like the 4 seasons too. I sometimes I like my winters, all joking aside, a little mild too. And I like my job, so I like to go in too. But if we get an occasional snow day, I won't cry too much.
Not too many though, because too many and you have to make them up at the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, it's true. Good point. Yep, that is correct. Here's a good question here, a little off topic, but I like off topic questions. It says, do you guys have any hobbies besides sports cards? If so, what else? We can go we'll start with Christina. What do you like to do besides cards as much as we like those?
I don't think I like anything as much as I like cards, to be honest. But I guess for second place, which is really like way down the list, I really enjoy reading and hiking.
All right, those are good ones. Chris?
I like watching sports.
That's a hobby. That's a hobby.
I feel like that's kind of cheating.
Oh, well, I was sitting over here thinking to myself, and I was like, well, when I'm not doing card stuff, I'm listening to sports podcasts and watching the NFL and the NBA. I might have a problem.
Well, that's a good problem. There's worse problems you could have, Chris, in your defense.
So. I guess so.
Mike?
Sure, yeah. I think mine have changed and evolved a little bit over time. For quite a while, music was a pretty good hobby of mine. I played piano and I played guitar and sang a little bit, and used to do a whole lot more of that than I do now. But in the summer, I really enjoy being outside. So gardening, working in the yard. I mow a few different other yards in my neighborhood and take care of some other yards too. I just really enjoy working with my hands outside and digging in the dirt and doing some of that kind of stuff. So in the summertime, I'm spending a lot of time outside.
Yeah, important stuff. Me, I still play men's competitive softball at 48 years old in the young guys league, trying to hang on for dear life, getting recruited for the senior league. That's closer than I'd like to admit. So I'll move up or down, depending on how you look at that, to that league here, probably in the next couple years. I've played that since high school ball ended. I went right into softball. So 30 years of that, and very competitive, and used to travel with that as well for tournaments. And then I like to fly drones. Sometimes I'll post those videos every so often on actually the hobby, the card hobby, social media sometimes. It's kind of fun to fly them, and gotten a couple new ones as I kind of get better at it. And it's fun, and you get some great shots. And that's kind of what I like to do. And like Mike says, I like to go outdoors, even if that's on the deck with a cigar and some Crown Royal and just relax and kind of collect your thoughts as well. Nothing wrong with that. And watch my wife mow the lawn on the riding lawnmower. And before you get mad at me, everybody, like, well, you should be doing that. She won't let. I would love to do that while smoking a cigar and drinking the beer. She won't let me. So I used to do it at my mother-in-law's house, which was a big farmhouse, and it was an old tractor, and it died while I was driving it. And so the rumor is I did it. I killed the riding lawnmower, so she won't let us ride ours, which is actually a fairly new John Deere. It's only a few years old, but my neighbor came over to me one day and said, John, why is Sharon mowing the lawn? You should be doing that. I'm like, I would love to do it. Ask her why I can't do it. And, she won't let me. So there you go. But I also learned that even though that was a complete accident, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I learned that this is a guy thing. So sorry, Christina. If you don't want to do something, screw it up. Like, so early on when we were married. I'm trying to think of married. I had to do the laundry, and let's just say the whites came out pink. And I believe that was the last time I had to do the laundry.
John, that doesn't work because I've shrunk clothes, I've turned them different colors, and yet the laundry is still my job. And he's the one who taught me how to do laundry when we were in college. So how is it I have no idea.
It works for me. It works for me. I guess I'm sorry it doesn't work for you. I will say the laundry was intentional. The riding lawnmower was just happenstance. So just let the record show. So, but but it's a great point too that you got to do stuff outside of as much as we love cards, right? It's a great thing, but to enjoy other things. And we got Jake Roy. Hey, Jake, how's it going?
Jake.
So another question. We're kind of coming down the home stretch here, Christina, even Mike too. I know you probably get asked this a lot. Mike does. I do. To new people. We have a lot of new people coming in the hobby, and that's a great thing. And I always get like, hey, what advice would you give a new hobbyist? And that's a tough question because there's so many ways you can go here. What do you say when you get asked, hey, I'm entering the hobby, give me some advice, give me some pointers. How do you answer something like that when you get that?
I've got a ready-made answer for this one. My advice is really pretty straightforward. Make sure that you're having fun. That's what the cornerstone of this hobby is. And people have fun in a lot of different ways. Some people really enjoy the entrepreneurial aspect of buying, selling, and flipping cards. Some people enjoy, scratching their collector itch and amassing sets and putting together personal collection. And some people just enjoy being a part of a community. And so that's the part that they really like is being a part of this niche subculture, or maybe some combination of all those things. So, some people like to research, and if you like to research, you can really knock yourself out with the hobby and its intersection with sports history if you want to do that. But whatever the avenue is that a person takes to enjoy the hobby, just make sure that's fun. Because if it's not fun, what's the point? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I always just say, have fun. And somebody might come back and say, well, how do I know what's fun and what's not? And so, okay, try stuff out. Try this, try that. There's so many different ways that people enjoy this hobby that, you could spend quite a few hours trying to figure out where your lane or what your niche is in this hobby. So that's what I would fall back to, is just make sure no matter what else is happening that you're having fun. Because if you're having fun, everything else is going to fall into place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine
Go ahead,
will
Christina.
be obvious, but I'm going to say them anyway. Collect what you like. Don't listen to the noise. Don't compare yourself to what others are doing. And don't be afraid to be weird.
Well, I got that one down to a science, I think. So
Yeah, so if you're an introvert and you're I don't want to be weird and just message this person and tell them I like that card or tell them I own the same card or anything like that, or oh, I see you went to my LCS, maybe we should go together once. Don't be afraid to be weird. Don't be creepy, but don't be afraid to be weird.
You heard it from Christina.
I thought when you were saying don't afraid to be weird is don't be afraid to collect Maxi Kleber.
Exactly.
But I think
Nope.
that's
Go
the
ahead, Mike.
point though, right? Is like everybody said so far, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What do you have fun with? There was probably a 10-year-old kid and his dad who came into the shop last weekend, and he had just kind of discovered cards in the last year, and they had bought some Series 1 and Series 2 tops, I think, that they had eventually found in Walmart or Target or something. And those were some of the questions of, well, what should he be buying? What should he be focusing on? I'm like, well, what do you like? What sports do you like? I heard basketball is pretty popular. Well, do you like basketball or do you not like basketball? Because it's not going to be fun if you don't like basketball. And so that's kind of what I pointed him to is take a look around. There's stuff here that is a quarter. I've got quarter boxes all over of players, teams, whatever. And there's stuff here that is hundreds or $1,000, right? And at 10, I don't know that the first focus should be on how do I get as many $1,000 cards as I can, right? It should be learning about teams, players, sets, brands, and what sports you like to have fun with, right? And so that was the advice that I gave him and his dad is try a few things out, focus on what players, sports, teams, whatever it might be that you like, and take it slow. There's plenty of time for you to collect. There's a lifetime to collect, but don't just jump in and do what everybody's saying or what you hear online or in a YouTube video or whatever else telling you what to buy. Buy what you like.
Yeah, that's great. I think not much I can add to that. Chris started off right. Have fun. It's got to start right there because this is a hobby. It's an outlet, right? It's a release. What do hobbies need to be, right? You got to enjoy them. If you're not enjoying the hobby, I don't know what to tell you. It's great to listen to content as a content creator. I'm not going to tell you otherwise, but at the same time, you have to, do your own research and make your own decision. Just don't blindly follow anything anyone tells you, myself included. That's not me talking about everybody else. That's everybody in the same pool. As there's a lot of great information out there, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision that you have to make. And like Mike said, make it be something you're going to enjoy. If you love watch, I'm a big football guy, right? So I tend to lean a lot with football. Everyone's different. We talked about pivoting. You can always change your mind. That's the beauty of the hobby. You're your own boss of your hobby. So if you want to go in a different direction, you can. And the hobby is a great community. If you have questions, there's plenty of people out there that, like Christina said, don't hesitate to communicate and ask a question or even comment, hey, I collect him too, like she said. And like she also said, don't be a creeper too. Don't do that. So we do have a question here. I'll put it up here. It's from DR. He says, do you think a company will ever try to let people short the values of cards on some kind of shadow platform? I'll just say this. There's all sorts of stuff happening that we don't know about. And not just in the card hobby, but in all facets, Wall Street, corporate, the corporate end of things. I mean, there's just all sorts of things like that goes on that we may never know about or we don't know about at this time. But anyone else want to sort of, piggyback off of that?
Yeah, I've just got a thought on that because it's not the first time I've heard somebody float the idea of being able to short a position on sports cards. And essentially what they're asking is for the ability to make a bet that the value of cards is going to go down or that make a bet that the value of certain cards is going to go down. And that just hasn't really been part of the philosophy of sports cards, at least ever since it really took on a strong market component over the last few years. Nobody's really been saying, man, I know what card's going to go down. People are saying instead, I think this one's going to go up or this one's going to do really well. But inevitably, there will be a time where people will start thinking that way. I think DR might just be ahead of the curve. And, it would definitely provide a counterbalance to our market if people could profit off of making a bet that a card is going to go down as opposed to going up. And the process of shorting, it's a technical process. It involves borrowing a stock and then giving it back. If your bet that the value is going to go down work correctly. So I suppose you could technically try to do that with cards if you were able to find somebody who would be willing to, lend them and take the other side of that bet. So, but it wouldn't be clean, or it would be pretty messy and difficult to pull off. So, I could see it happening. But there might actually be some good that could come of a process like that, because, like I said, it would provide a counterbalance to our market if you have the ability to make a bet that cards are going to go down. Because right now, really, the only bet you can make is that you have to pick one that's going to go up. So, it's an interesting idea.
I'm not a fan. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know. I don't really understand all of the technical things behind how to short things. Like, I just know didn't work out well in 2008 with the housing crisis. So not a fan of it coming into my hobby. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a stock guy, so I know how it goes. Like Chris touched on, I think it'd be very difficult to do. All the time you would have to take to do that, you could probably put into something else that would even be more lucrative or productive if it's all about the dollar signs. I think you could make a quicker buck with a little bit less work even. So I don't know. Can it happen? Anything's possible. I think we've learned in the last 3 years in this hobby, you never say never, but it's a lot of moving parts in that. Jake got a comment for Christina. Don't be creepy. I feel attacked. So.
I was trying to be subtle, Jake, but if you read it, everyone else did too. So, yes, I was talking about Jake Roy of 90s B-ball cards when I said, don't be creepy. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding.
All right, so hey, we're about an hour 5 minutes. You heard Chris; he's got another show to do. Sleep at some point later. He's got card ladder work. Christina as well. I'm making it out like Chris does everything. Something tells me Christina does more than she's probably given even credit for. So we'll kind of have everyone give out where we can find you. We'll kind of go clockwise. We'll start with Mike. Give out all where people can find the podcast, the blog, the website, all that great stuff.
Sure. The landing page of everything is at waxpackhero.com. You can find the podcast, the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute, pretty much anywhere that podcasts are found. And you can reach out to me on Twitter at @TheMikeSummer or send me an email at waxpackhero@gmail.com. I'd love to have a conversation and keep the conversation going.
There you go. I suppose best place to find me is Instagram, Chris_HOJ. And but if you're on Twitter at House of Jordans, and then check out Card Ladder on all the social platforms or in your app store, whether it's Apple or Android phone. Just search Card Ladder and you'll find it.
I'm Christina's PC. Kristinas PC. For anyone who used to listen to House of Jordans. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and pretty much if you leave a feedback on Card Ladder, I'm the person who responds. So you have a direct connect right there.
And Jake had one more question. He says, who gets more than 5 hours of sleep, Chris or Christina?
Well, Christina kind of subtly said I sleep a little more than her earlier in the episode. She said I get about 7 hours and she takes about 6. So
who took a nap today?
Well, there you go.
I love naps. Don't. We could do a whole nother hour just on me talking about naps. We're not going to do it, but when you get old like me, naps are like one of the 5 food groups. You got to have something from it, right? So I love my Saturday nap when I can get it. So, but Mike, Chris, Christina, thank you. Continued success all around as well. Remember, the hobby's the people, and also remember Don't be a creeper.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you guys so much.